Break a leg, everybody.
Back.
All right, ready to go. Hey, everyone, and welcome to our panel for the digital media track. We are getting started with digital media, the ups and downs. My name is Mike Faber. I'm your host for this panel, and I'll be moderating. I host the Earth Station 1 podcast, the Earth Station Who podcast, and I also co-host the DragonCon report. I also own the ESO network, and so I've been podcasting for about 12 and a half years. And I also consider myself a mentor and a teacher of podcasting. So this will be a lot of fun. We got a lot of great people to talk, and I'm going to introduce everyone. Let's introduce Matthew first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matthew Malice. I am the director, host, and editor for, essentially, producer of the Polyhedron podcast, which is a podcast all about role-playing games. So anything we talk about it bi-weekly. Everything you want to know about role-playing games, we try to cover it in some form or another.
That's awesome. And we also have Mike Faulkner.
Hey, Mike Faulkner. I'm from the Atlanta area. I'm a writer and a podcaster. Right now I'm doing a lot of blogging on my website. It's Creative Criticality, where I've been crazy to do Doctor Who stuff for since 2014, episode by episode, talking about each of those from the very beginning of the franchise. I started podcasting back in 2008 with a show called The Scapecast, where I was initially a writer and then became voice talent with them. And now I do whatever I can to help out with the ESO network with Mike, including the stuff with DragonCon newbies for the DragonCon report, and also with the teaching aspect of it. I'm trying to get more people involved in this hobby.
Of course. And we also have Tyra. Welcome.
Hi, I am Tyra Burton. I teach at Kennesaw State University, and I teach social media, which is all about podcasting. So I try to addict my students while I'm there. And I've been podcasting for about 10 and a half years. I finally figured out, started with Leveling Azeroth, which was a World of Warcraft podcast. And now I have the Geek Meets. I forgot my own. This is so sad. It's day 3 of con, and I've had sleep, so I have no excuse. Geek Meet Social and the Geeky Side are my other two.
She can't blame the apple pie on it, folks.
I can't.
As many
I love
do.
apple pie.
Yeah. And Channing, welcome. You're the newbie in the group.
I am very much the newbie. I'm Channing Sherman. I'm one of the founders of the Black Geeks of DragonCon. Huge nerd. I've been wanting to start a podcast for roughly 4 years now. I have done all the research, so in that aspect, I'm an expert. I've researched everything about starting a podcast.
He probably knows more than we do, guys.
Right. The only thing I haven't done is actually sit down and press record. So hopefully, at the very least, people will learn from my mistakes in this podcast, and maybe I will get some inspiration to finally sit down and do it.
And last but not least, we have Sean. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here. we had some technical difficulties before the show because I decided to switch out mics, and I'm still kind of nervous. But my name is Sean Weiland. I am a voice actor. I worked in video games for a while, and podcasts were actually where I got back into voice acting, doing the Young Avengers Live. I've been working with Cryptic Cannicles, doing their literature horror series. Oh my goodness. I do a lot of editing, and of course my podcast, Wasted Knowledge, The Beery Traveler, and I was actually the executive producer for the very first game review psychology podcast, and it actually is just, the name is escaping me right now, but it's for one of my old actual jobs. I got paid to do it, which was awesome.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah. You actually made money at this. Wow.
Well, I got paid to do it.
Okay. Great. That's the thing. Well, that's one of the things we're going to talk about throughout this hour, and we're going to talk about what kind of podcasting we want to do, what kind of, how to get involved with it. We're not just talking about audio podcasts. We're also going to talk about video podcasting too, because that's becoming really big over the last couple of years. So, some of us might have more experience on either end or both. So it's going to be a lot of fun. That's why we have a lot of experts here today to talk about it. And the way I do my panels is round robin. Let's do discussions. I'm not going to go, so-and-so tell me this, so-and-so tell me that. But we also want the people in the audience at home getting involved. We want questions. Please do. And Channing here is going to be the everyday man of the thing. So our goal by the end of today is to get Channing recording a podcast. Yes. That's what we all want to do. So
No pressure at all.
Oh, we're all going to be watching you, dude.
Oh, yes.
Don't worry. Oh, yeah. We got our eyes right on you.
The nagging is coming. I want to see it on an RSS feed, man. I want to see it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So the first question I got for you guys is, How did you get into podcasting? Why did you want to get into podcasting? Anybody?
Well, my experience with it was actually kind of almost by accident. The Scapecast, they had one core mission for their show in exploring the wonders of Farscape. They had a question, and it was, what is Farscape?
Yeah.
And a lot of people would put on the message boards or in whatever kind of medium they could. Well, here's why I like it. It was 1 or 2 sentences. I went to the effort of writing an essay. And when I sent this off to the people at the Scapecast, they came back and said, great, thank you for this. Number 1, can we use this on the show? And I said, sure, absolutely. Number 2, would you like to write for us? And then, from that point, I started writing more and more articles for them because they were very much a magazine type podcast. And then at some point it was like, okay, listen, do you want to read these for us? Because we have a shortage of voice talent. Do you want to get involved in that way? Absolutely, yes. And that was the start of that road. And it's been a fun adventure since.
Okay. What about the rest of you guys?
I just wanted to have a conversation. Like,
Really?
I love Warcraft, and it was all about me and my best friend having that conversation. We had enjoyed other podcasts. We thought, oh, sure, we can do this. No worries.
Famous last words, right?
Famous last words.
Famous last words.
My job
Matthew,
was to show up.
Matthew, what about you?
So many moons ago, I work in a lab every day for my normal 9 to 5. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, and after a while, I was listening to some actual plays. This was well before Critical Role and all of that sort of RPG blew up. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. I have things. I've been doing this for a really long time. I can talk about, and I just started digging, like, how do you get things hosted on a site? How do you edit? Are you going to answer all those many questions I'm sure we're going to cover here in a little bit, but just that's what I did, and I've been doing it ever since. And basically, besides Polyhedron, I've been working with my buddy making his in-house studio so he can do live captures of role-playing games. So I've been expanding my repertoire from just audio to audio and video.
That's cool. Sean? Oh, Channing, what's up?
Oh, well, yeah, in my case, it was just I needed a hobby.
Right.
And I wasn't one of those people who thought, okay, I'm going to go into podcasting for all those big internet dollars, but I needed a hobby. And I also kind of thought,
We will get to that.
I have some really smart friends. There's a saying, and I know I'm messing it up, but if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room. And that's never been a problem for me because I know some insanely smart people. And I've always said it'd be nice to kind of talk with them and learn some stuff. I mean, I know people who work for the CDC who are dealing with COVID on the front lines, award-winning sports writers. I've just met a lot of people over the years. And so I kind of thought, okay, it'd be fun to sit down and talk with my friends and kind of learn what they do and just get to share it. So that was kind of my inspiration for wanting to do it.
That's awesome. Sean, what about you?
Oh, so 2 things got me into it. One was my BA was in theater, and I studied acting and sound design. And one of my favorite things was radio dramas. Like, I had one professor that was super into radio dramas. And as a kid, my mom had bought me this whole cassette collection of old school radio dramas, like The Shadow and Amos and Andy and all these other things. And I loved them. So when I got to do this in theater, I was like, this is the best thing. And I split my time between acting and sound design. So, I got into Pro Tools back when it was like version 4 or 5. Like when the inbox came out for Christmas the first year, that's all I asked for. So I got super into audio. And when I graduated, podcasts weren't a thing yet. They didn't start existing. So it kind of fell by the wayside. And then when I started getting back into voice acting, I was doing a workshop, and someone who was starting the Young Avengers podcast heard me. They're like, we need you. Do you want to do it? And I was like, yeah, of course. This sounds awesome. A comic radio drama podcast. This sounds amazing. I'm in. So I did that for 2.5, 3 years. And then I met someone at work. I'm a bartender by trade. And he basically, this other guy pointed out that we are natural conversationalists as bartenders. And he's like, so I've had this idea for a podcast for a long time. And after about a year, I said, I'm going to steal your idea if you don't do it, but I'll help you because I have all the equipment from all my past stuff. And that was wasted knowledge. And we started that 2-3 years ago.
No, that's very awesome. It's, most people have their stories on why they want to get into podcasting and stuff. Mine was I worked in college radio and did an internship at professional radio stations and eventually became a board op and a DJ for a bit in the Washington, D.C. area. But then I moved away from it and got more into my graphic art and such. But then about 2008, started listening to other podcasts, and I was like listening to them, and it's like, I could do this. This doesn't sound all that hard. And I probably could sound a lot better than a lot of these people doing it, because sometimes you have very low quality podcasts. You have all different levels. And I was like, I can do this. So I wrote to these podcasters and I asked them, how do you do this? And they are the ones who gave me told me about equipment. They told me about what to get started, RSS feeds. They taught me about all that kind of stuff. So that actually goes into my next question that we're going to have for you guys. Basically, what kind of equipment do you guys recommend to get started with? Because it's a lot different to get started with equipment now than it was 12 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And everything. Because you can get started with your phone. Nowadays.
My first recommendation is whatever you can afford, whatever you can get your hands on. It may not be great and it's not going to be what you want, but you got to start somewhere. And so you need stuff if it's your phone and your computer or just a phone and all that stuff, do it. Just try to get into it and figure it out. One of the weird advices for for beginners, it's a little off topic, but it's like, your first couple episodes are going to be complete trash. Just throw them in the garbage.
Oh, we were going to get to that. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, but that's my suggestion for the equipment stuff. Is just start. Just get
whatever you can afford. And, like I said, talk to other people and everything. What about the rest of you? Like Channing, what are you looking to get started with to start your podcast?
That was one of the big hangups that I had. I fell into that trap of over-researching the technology. I really did. It's like, okay, let me evaluate all these mics. Or what about these mic stands? And I probably went too far down a rabbit hole and wasted a lot of time doing that. Just to kind of piggyback off what Matthew said, yeah, you kind of have to get what's right for you. Right now, I have a blue microphone, but it's not even a Snowball or a Yeti. It's one of the series below that. Got it off Groupon. It was less than yeah, exactly. It was less than $80, a good price point, and you can hear now. I'm getting good audio quality off of it. And I think the other thing is you don't want to spend too much money up front because you want to give yourself room to grow. There's nothing wrong with starting it good and then building toward great.
Exactly, because that's one of the advice we always give is, and I've done research on this, that most podcasts, 90% of them will not make it past their 10th episode. People are going to find out that there's so much work that they need to get into this. And it's not just, hi, I'm recording, boom, it's up, and I'm going to become rich and famous just from doing that. It's not that easy, folks. Tara, what about you?
I just want to say blue microphones are awesome. That's what we started with. And the blue Snowball, I think, is a good price point. And you can use it for your video conferencing for work if you decide you don't like podcasting. So it's still going to work well. But my co-host has one he's had for 11 years and it's still doing its job. I mean,
blue Snowballs are wonderful because they're USB plug and play mics. And it has 3 options on it way you could record. So if you want to even interview with somebody in the same room, you could set it up that way just by using one mic.
Yeah. And I used Yetis. I used Yetis for years.
I just moved to a condenser mic about a year ago, and before that we were using a Yeti, and it was awesome.
They're fabulous.
Mike Faulkner, what about you?
I usually tell people that if someone comes to you and says you need to start out with hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of equipment, they're pulling your leg, because like you said, people will fade out very quickly, and most people will. The one piece of equipment that I tell people they absolutely need to have is there's a book called Podcasting for Dummies. It's written by T. Morris. He's a veteran in this field. And he's written 3 or 4 versions of that book now. And that book will tell you nuts to bolts where he thinks you should go, as a starting podcaster, and move up from there. And he recommends very basic economy equipment, and then like we've been discussing here with Channing, move up from there. You know, make improvements as you can, as your monetary situation allows, as your equipment allows, but don't start out big and then like now you burned off $100 or hundreds of dollars worth of money. You know.
In other words, stay away from Guitar Center, folks. Don't walk in there
No.
because they will try to sell you on. And no offense against Guitar Center, it's a great place, especially as you start building and you're wanting to improve your sound, your audio and stuff. But for the first off, when you're going, go to Best Buy, go to Amazon, you know, look at Groupon. You know, there's great places to get a really affordable mic, even get a microphone attachment for your phone. It's pretty awesome, you know, type thing. So Sean, what were you going to say?
Well, I haven't gone back to Guitar Center since 2005 because I bought a pair of MXLs that were trash and they wouldn't take them back. So I just don't go to Guitar Center out of principle.
There goes that Guitar Center sponsorship.
Damn, there goes our sponsorship for this.
I'm okay with that. You know, I don't want trash microphones. That's fine.
Yeah.
But what I do want to modify that a little bit is get the best you can afford.
Yes.
You don't have to spend thousands or whatever, but I do try to think about longevity. You know, if I still have my first SM58 that I ever bought in college and undergrad because it's still a good mic, it still works, it still sounds great, and when I have extra guests, plug it right in, you're good to go.
I'm using an SM57 right now. That's exactly what you're hearing me on. This is a $100 microphone.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
That's it.
Right.
I didn't start like that. I bought much cheaper stuff, but this is what I have now.
But if you're just starting out and actually like overhead, just outside of view, I have a Marantz USB large diaphragm condenser microphone that I bought for $40 on some sort of internet sale. And my favorite thing to do is get an old iPhone that I have, a little USB adapter, and I plug that in. You know, if you already have a smartphone, you're basically $40 and a $20 adapter, and you have really good sound that you can take anywhere.
I know some podcasters who use headset microphones. I know some people who use, you know, it just depends what you're comfortable with, basically. And also if you're doing video or not too, you know how you want to do it that way too. Because if you want to do a video podcast, or if you want to do, you know, that also you have to take that into effect, you know, because then you also have to think about what do I want to spend on a video camera. And thanks to COVID, the prices of video cameras have gone through the roof pretty much. You know, they've almost tripled in price. It's
also,
just
that's
amazing.
a whole other like kettle of fish of technology, like how that works and in sort of streamlining that.
Oh yeah. It's just amazing. And you know, you need a decent camera if you're going to do a video podcast. You don't need 4K if you're just going to be sitting in a room like we are right now and everything. But you know, have a decent one, you know, just so you don't get pixelated when you move around or something like that. You just, you know, there's research on it. But you know, for cameras right now, you just need to be prepared. Even a Logitech camera, which was $40 6 months ago, now is almost $150, just because the prices. So many people are working from home now and doing teleconferencing. Everyone's selling out, and Logitech is going all the way to the, you know, so it's pretty awesome. We did get a couple questions from the audience real quick. Oddball Extreme, I'm coming here to get better understanding of podcasts because some of my friends and I are just starting out on Twitch and we've had some issues. So has anyone podcast onto Twitch and stuff? I know some friends of mine have done gaming and stuff like that.
Yeah, I did it for Polyhedron for about 6 months. We tried to do live stuff. It was interesting. It wasn't bad. It's just was a very different format because we were live rather than being recorded, which is very important. Also put a lot of stress on me because I had to set up the camera, set up the microphones, make sure everything was working. I was working like an hour and a half before my buddies would even show up to do the recording to make sure everything was working, because I'm sure what we'll probably say is if you're having problems, you will always have problems. There will always be something that you're going to encounter and you're like, why isn't this working? It'll take years of experience before you're like can set something up like almost without any issue whatsoever. So
And with Twitch, don't you always have to use that OBS software or something similar? So that's like putting an extra layer.
You need a broadcasting software, but not necessarily OBS, but just OBS is one of the more predominant ones, because you can get OBS like the free normal version, then they have a more advanced version, I believe. I forgot what it's called. It's OBS like Suite or Studio or something. But there's other things like XSplit and a few other like broadcasting type software out there.
I know a lot of podcasts right now are using Zoom to do their video podcasting like we are here today. But also I know there's another one, StreamYard, which is another, one that people are using. And each one has its plus and minuses. I like Zoom personally, especially now that they, in their newest version, they have a better audio quality upgrade for it, which is pretty awesome. That, if you're a musician or if you want a better sounding podcast, this, it helps not make it sound so tinny and such. Also with Zoom, I like that if you record audio, when you save it to your laptop, there's an option that you could split each call into a different track. And for editing folks, it'll make your life so much easier.
Yeah.
Because that way, if somebody ums or ers or talks over somebody, you can arrange it that it doesn't sound so, and it just helps with more professional sounding.
I'm spoiled by that feature now, because I used to do studio recording. Studio recording, it's hard to do multi-track stuff. But with Zoom, I'm like, done.
Yeah. We used to use call recorder on Skype for years, and it did have multi-track, but it was only the main person who was recording, and then whoever else was on the line with you as a second track. So it was easier somewhat, but Zoom makes it so much easier. It's almost like you're using a multi-track, board or something for each one, which is pretty nice, because then you could also adjust the volumes. What are you going to say?
Oh, no, I'll give Zoom credit. When COVID hit, they really scrambled to get some, not just new features, but also just kind of tighten up their basic features. For podcasting, for teleconferencing, for the whole nine. They really did kind of step their game up when all this happened.
A lot of people weren't using Zoom though because of the security issues that they were having, but they have fixed that. So when you hear people, I've never had other people hop on my call, or anything like that. That's just my co-host, so it's okay to do that, So it's pretty awesome. Another question we've gotten was, if you have a few different podcasts, how do you balance pushing them on social media without exhausting yourself and your closest circle? So, usually, that takes up half the time, and we haven't even gotten to that that part of the questions was, basically, you have to record your podcast, then you have to edit your podcast. Then once it goes live, we haven't talked about web hosting yet, or, a podcast host, finding the perfect one for you, because there's a zillion of them out there, and you've got to be careful with some of them too. And we'll talk about that in a sec. But to answer your question, promotion is takes up more of your time than a lot of, recording your podcast. So it's pretty amazing. What about you guys? Do you guys have a lot of time consumption with posting social media, or do you even do it? Do you just post it out to the world and let it go out to iTunes and Google and Stitcher and wherever else it goes?
It's hard because it's your show, so you're the only one shaking your tail feathers for that show. So if you don't promote it on social media, who will? But I do see where there's a problem with over promoting, going in and just blasting it out every hour or something on social media. You've got to find that balance so you don't annoy the people who are there with you on social media, but you can't just drop it altogether. You have to be the one who's doing that, because no one else will.
Unless you hire somebody to do it, and that gets expensive.
Right.
Very expensive to do. You could have an intern if you become big enough, to do all your social media for you, but that's not going to happen for quite some time. So, that's a good question though. So plan on, like Mike said, you are going to basically be your own promotions department, and you be prepared to go forward and, push. And that's how people, find you unless you have a built-up community already that, like in Discord or on Facebook or Instagram or something, where you have, a group of people that are already like your dedicated listeners and hope they tell and everything. So, but it's always great to get new listeners and just go out and get more stuff. All right, another question. How can I get one troublesome episode from Twitch to YouTube? There is one episode we can't upload there or download to the computer. It's stuck. Does anyone have that? I think you might have stopped the X-Rix, dude.
I'm out.
Well, actually, clarification. We don't know your specific details of what's going on. We
Right.
can't answer that question because unless we have specific, we learn. I think a lot of us learned with our hands on. So it's
Right.
not like we are like cognizant of all the little rules and stipulations. It's we need to see it, and then we need to press a whole bunch of buttons and see what happens. If you're having an issue, maybe it's a setting in Twitch. Maybe you're not an affiliate, and they don't do certain things unless you're an affiliate. To counter that, if you cannot recover it, going in the future, make sure you're recording on your computer so that you have a backup file waiting for you. Yeah. And so if Twitch tries to crap out on you, you have something to salvage, and then you can throw that up on YouTube. That's all I can really say.
Always have a backup. Always have a backup. It's backup because we've lost episodes of our podcast because one channel didn't record properly, or so if somebody else on the other side is recording or something like that. We did a Mel Brooks episode years ago, and we actually had a historian on Mel Brooks on the show with us. My side of the recording came out great. It sounded awesome. Their side wasn't recorded at all. So we basically had to beg and basically scramble real quick, and we had to put up a quick episode, and then the following week we had to get the person back because of technical issues, and it's going to happen. So always be redundant in a lot of ways. It's always smarter that way to do it. So let's talk about hosting your podcast, because once you record it, you need to have an RSS feed and someplace for your podcast to live. What do we use? We just moved about a year ago to a company called Fireside.fm to host our podcast, and it's great. It's not that expensive. It's like $19 a month to host an unlimited downloads, unlimited podcasts that we want to have up there. And there's different ones. There's Anchor, which is free. There's a couple others out there. There's Blueberry, there's SoundCloud, there's all these other ones. What do you recommend when you're trying to find a host for your podcast?
Read the features, man.
Yeah,
it's true.
And if you don't know what they are, Google it, go to their forums, try to really, there's a lot to just hosting, but read through it and see what you're getting with each one, and try to go to 3 or 4 different websites. I use Blueberry, and I know it's a little bit on the pricier end, but they do a lot to me for the service. There's a lot of stuff that they just auto feed out and send to other oh my gosh,
directories,
stores,
aggregators.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I love it because it takes a lot of the load off of me, because I am a co-host, but I do all the production. So
right.
Yeah, I need this tool.
And that's wonderful, because if you have a good host, all you have to do is post your podcast, and it'll push the RSS feed out to these aggregators and everything, like Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all these other ones, and you could sign, and a lot of ones you never even think you're going to be on, you're on, because they pick up what Apple has or Google has already. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty awesome. Yes. Tyra, what about you? What are your thoughts?
We're still using Podbean, and I love Podbean, but the podcast that I'm doing for school, which is my students, I needed a free hosting system, and Anchor's been good for that. So I think that if you can find one where you can host at least your first couple for free, a lot of them have trials, to make sure you actually like podcasting first. I mean, that's the key to make sure it's okay. So for a while, I used Podbean's free one for mine, but I needed one that was unlimited for that. And so for the university not having funds, that's why we chose Anchor for that podcast. So you just have to, I agree. I think you have to look at what they're offering and what your price point is. You know, if you're on the cheap, then you're going to have to look at that. But I would definitely say make sure you try it before you buy it.
No, totally understand that. Mike, what about you?
No, I was actually surprised when I was looking at podcasting for dummies, because historically most things for podcasting said, okay, it's you record, you throw it on an RSS feed, and that's what a podcast is. And then T actually surprised me when I was reading that book, because he said one of the places that is growing the fastest and is now being considered part of the podcasting sphere is throwing your episodes up on YouTube, even audio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because
exactly.
YouTube is so ubiquitous, people are always going to YouTube for something. And so if they start researching, let's say you got a Star Trek podcast, they're researching Star Trek, and your show shows up, they punch the subscribe, they ring the bell, and now they've got your podcast on a weekly or whatever frequency basis. Right.
That's pretty.
Well, and Spotify changed so much in terms of that too.
Yeah, it has.
The YouTube thing is a good point, because they just integrated Google Music into YouTube.
Right.
And a lot of people I have Google YouTube Red, which means you get no commercials. There's no, and you get YouTube Music now too, since it's all integrated, which means you can just go there, find the playlist, and just start listening. Which gives me thinking I may need to start doing that. I haven't done that.
I know we need to do that. That's a good one, actually. But it's interesting because Amazon is just getting right into the podcast market too.
Oh Lord!
And so Amazon basically they haven't started posting yet, but they sent out an application form to various podcasters that we want to put you on, as one of your first, and we got that at ESO. Nice. And so we're gonna submit that and everything. Yeah, but just do what you feel comfortable. I made the mistake of doing the self hosting for a long time, and just using, what was it? They had a Google basically RSS aggregator that they pushed out that they used, and it was not good because I had to do all the work myself. And I didn't know better, but then I was like, oh, there's other places that'll do it for me. Okay. And that's it's a learning experience, and that's the great way to do it and everything, which is pretty awesome with that. So, what other, there's other ways to do, that you could do it. You can have your podcast that you could just do a video podcast, like a gaming podcast. You could do like where you're just sitting around playing video games every week and such, so you can have that. And I know that's up. Is that Twitch that you could do that up on?
Everything that people Twitch and YouTube technically. You can go live on YouTube.
And some of them you can go live on Facebook too.
Yeah. What's up, Channing?
Just to kind of jump back to the hosting thing, I've seen some people on the internet, so it's real if it's on the internet, but they've mentioned things like some of these free services, they either you don't have control over the ads that they inject into your podcast, or B, they have some stuff in their terms of service where they either completely own or partially own your content. It's kind of like, it's a free site, so we're going to do this hosting, but we own your stuff. Have you all ever heard of that?
Anchor.
That's Anchor?
Anchor right away. They put in their own advertising, and they also will base you. If you want to leave Anchor, you got to be very careful, because a lot of times they will not let your content up out of their property. So always have a backup on your hard drives. So that way, if you go to another hosting service, you'll be able to have it up there. So it's good. Oh, the one I was talking about before was FeedBurner. I don't know if you guys ever have used FeedBurner.
I use that to track my analytics because it's free, but it's not really great. It's just what I used at the time. I use my website's RSS. I use Squarespace. They have unlimited hosting for like $100 a year. So that's what I use, and they have they're getting better analytics. So I'm just use that to kind of help me guide what's going on right now.
Well, it's like for me, I was self-hosted on 101 and then did FeedBurner to get my podcast out there. And basically, after almost 10 years of doing podcasts, I had almost 1,000 MP3s up there because with all the episodes we've done over the years. And so it started weighing the hosting down. And then it's like, I started hearing about, Blueberry and all these other ones to move over to, and just find out the one that's proper for you. And make sure you also register your domain for your podcast and everything, so you have your own domain, so it's easy for people to find you and everything. It makes it so much easier, and just not rely on the domain for what Anchor has or Blueberry has, because they'll host your podcast, but if you have your own domain, you could have it forwarded through your domain to that other site. And everything, that's
the number one mistake newbies make, is they don't buy their URL. They just don't get that site, and you have to, regardless of whether you're an author or a podcaster or an artist. Please buy your URL.
Yep.
Hey, Mike.
Go ahead.
I want to say, Mike, we got a note from Charles here too. It looks like Anchor may have changed their terms of service.
Yeah, Anchor doesn't own your content, and they get you to read the ads yourself. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it, dude.
Okay, we got it.
Charles always covering us.
Exactly. He's our big brother in the eye in the sky, basically.
And that really says a lot to the terms of service on these. They've changed so frequently, so you got to be on top of all the time, like making sure that your host isn't trying to change things from underneath you and take your stuff and run, or give you more benefits on the other hand, and you don't know about them. You're not exercising them.
I've had that.
Well, exactly. And we have a couple more questions. Someone asked us, what kind of camera would you suggest for newcomers? Whatever camera you feel comfortable with, basically. There's so many USB cameras out there. You can go on to Amazon and just type USB camera. And, if you want an HD camera, if you want to go up to 4K, that gets over $200. But it can. But, for, a good USB 1080 HD camera, you're looking anywhere from $35 all the way up to a couple hundred, depends what you want. And the prices have just gone up because of everybody working from home. So there's, definitely a lot that you could look at. Amazon is a great place to look for all your, hate to say it, for all your podcast shopping needs, but
Well, and I want to say the Discord, join the digital media track on Discord, because I got suggestions from there for mine. There's a podcasting channel inside of the digital media Discord. Go to it. They are so helpful in there. And that's where I got mine. They said when one was going on sale, and I finally have one.
But you got to be... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, I do want to push back on something you said earlier, Mike. You said that people don't necessarily need 4K cameras, and I have to disagree, because I want all of my fans to see this in its full glory. So I'm needing 4K.
I don't want everybody to see me in 4K. I don't want to scare everybody away. Everyone always likes to say I have a face for radio, so it's perfect,
But yeah, there are some good forums. The digital media one on Discord is good. And this is going to sound weird. The podcasting channel on Reddit, of all places, is actually really good.
Yep.
Reddit has its problems, I'll admit it, but the podcasting one, I've gotten some good tips from there, and they also mention when certain things are going on sale. So don't be ashamed to join these communities out there.
Yeah. And they'll support you, because I've had people on I've gone to podcast, like the Reddit on podcast, going, hey guys, I got an audio issue. I can't clean this up. What the heck is going on? I'm new, I'm learning. And I had guys message me going, hey, send me the clip. Let me see what I can do. And then some guy came back who was like, couldn't do much, but try these things. And he would send me back the audio. He wasn't editing my podcast for me. He was showing me what I needed to do to make mine sound better, and or point at going, this is garbage, it will always be garbage, and I'm sorry, but these are the things you can do to correct your mistake in the future.
That's exactly the way it should be, because like I went onto the Discord, like Tara had said to ask a question about my soundboard, because I wanted to have 2 external mics hooked up to my soundboard and then to put it into my Mac and then be able to have them to be 2 different channels. So that way I can edit easily. And, because I'm going to be starting another podcast. That's one of the things with podcasting. Once you start, you're going to get addicted if it catches on. I come up with new shows for my network all the time. If it was my way, my network would be over 1,000 shows right now. but no, and everything. So my wife has actually threatened me that if I start another podcast, she has to buy another dog. So it's okay.
Oh, I'm all for that. Let's do that.
Good. Yeah.
I have 4 of them already. So no.
5 is good.
You have a
5.
pack. You don't have dogs. You have a pack.
I have a pack. I know.
One thing I will say about the cameras too is that your built-in is fine if it's what you're looking for. You do want to try to move on if you want to do something more with it. But definitely, whatever you look into, read the reviews on the cameras, on the stuff you buy. Don't be afraid to spend a lot of time reading that, because there are a lot of great deals out there on these knockoff 1080p cameras. But when you get them, they fail immediately.
I've returned 2 of them to Amazon so far because it was knockoffs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna hop in on this question because we got more questions about like cameras and stuff, and I've been doing a lot of video stuff lately, and it's mind melting the amount of stuff that you have to you'll run into. So like standalone cameras, all that fun stuff. Your camera, if you're just doing one little screen, like you see us in a box right here, just doing a simple Logitech 92 or whatever they got right now, your standard $100 Logitech camera, fine, it's going to be okay. You guys got to play with the settings. But if you want a studio style grade or multiple cameras, multiple cameras are going to chew your computer up, because most stock standard computers don't have the USB buses that can handle multiple of that. So you're going to have a lot of video issues. You're not going to record, things are going to stutter, things are going to block out. Because I was working at my buddy's studio, and you're
going to have to start buying a lot more equipment for that.
Yes, yeah. What his solution to all that was, he bought little $100 essentially computers that would all basically network to his main computer. So they were all handling the computer, the digital decoding of the camera, and then he was routing them into his main computer so that he could put them all up on stream.
Right.
It took a while to get that all set up. As for standalone cameras and tripod stuff, you can do that with the USB mic camera. But also know, if you want high quality, you want big quality, you're going to be spending thousands of dollars if you want a studio grade camera.
But starting off, I don't think you need that. No. One of the questions we got here online was, Kilted Pipe Guy asked, question, could I use my built-in laptop camera or should I get a standalone one? I would say to start off, use the one that's on your camera on your computer just to get started with. It's not a bad picture. You might not have as high as quality as getting a standalone, but if you're just going to be sitting around, talking to one other person or yourself like we're doing here, it's no problem. You can get a very nice picture from it. And a lot of times, exactly. There's settings in there. A lot of people don't know that their computer cameras even have settings on it that you could set and everything. And the more modern computer you have, the better camera you have on your computer. So
everybody who's using one, raise your hand.
I'll tell you, I did a panel earlier. It was one of the pre-recordeds for DragonCon TV. It was the DragonCon newbie stuff, and one of our panelists doesn't have access to the laptop, standalone camera, all this other kind of stuff, a microphone, all that. She was using her cell phone on StreamYard, and the way she was doing it, I kid you not, there's a trash can with shoes in there to stabilize it on a selfie stick with the cell phone camera, and it was great.
Awesome.
Okay, it works.
It works perfectly.
Yeah.
You see these people up on YouTube, a lot of the YouTube bloggers and stuff, they're holding their cameras. A lot of times it's their phone on a selfie stick, and they're just talking into it, walking and stuff. And it's great when they fall or something as they're doing it. It makes my day, because it's just like they trip or something, So it's pretty awesome. What, Sean, go.
Sorry. No, 2 quick points. If you're going to do multiple cameras, make sure you buy the same ones, the same model, because that's going to just just be a beast. And I actually have like two different ones. I have an overhead camera for some shots, and it's like I had to get the closest because while my camera's refocusing. The first one I bought, it went from the $90 camera Logitech, this whatever it was, and now it's $300. I'm like, well, can't afford that. Guess I'm buying a knockoff, and it works fine. But I basically had to just roll the dice. But also, yeah, my phone, I had no idea it shoots in 4K. So like, it's better than that camera. I can plug this in, log it into whatever stream I'm doing, and just use that as my camra. And that's another awesome way. Almost everyone's got some kind of phone where your standard laptop, whatever camera is 720. Most of their phones are doing 1080 or higher. So,
and I know Apple actually offers free classes on using your video on your phone and such. And so you could just go there and they'll teach you how to do the upper settings and stuff like that. One thing I did want to touch on also, like we've said, there's a lot of groups out there. There's a lot of different places you could get information on podcasting. Be careful. There are a lot of people now trying to sell you podcast marketing packages and such. Do not fall for that. Never. Oh, we'll get you 1,000 likes up on iTunes, or we'll get you. No, do not do that, folks. It's crazy. There's too many people out there that want to take advantage because podcasting is the new big thing, and they're trying to make an easy buck, and they're trying to fall for suckers. And Facebook has hundreds of podcast groups. Be careful, folks. There's people preying on you. I get people writing me, "Oh, Mike, I see your podcast. Do you want to be on here? Blah, blah, blah." And it's like, no, don't, folks. And another thing, you're not going to get rich being a podcaster. It's funny as hell. People. I saw this literally today in one of the podcasting groups up on Facebook. How many people have quit their day job and just podcast 100% now? And it was like, some people were like, yeah, I do. And, it's like, yeah, if my wife was making $10 million a year, I would do that. But no, you don't get rich by podcasting. You're not going to be a Kevin Smith. You're not going to be a Mark Maron. You're not going to be, a lot of these big, big things, especially right away. People think, you could be Charles and, make millions of dollars, right off bat. But, it just doesn't work that way, folks. So, just have fun with it and just be a podcaster. It's a community that you're going to love, What are you going to say, Matt?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't think about like, oh, I'm going to make money and be popular. No, make the things you love.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Your genuineness, your authenticity will come through. And if you're good and you refine your talent and you get a little lucky, I'm not saying there is luck involved.
There is lucky.
Luck. You'll get a following. You'll start making some money. You'll start being able to do more, because because I know we're getting close to time. The thing that I was told was podcasting won't make you rich, but it will start opening doors for you.
Exactly.
It shows that you're interested in a subject or a talent, and that you're committed to a thing. And people are like, oh, that guy can do work. Let's see what else they can do.
Exactly. Hey, that guy has a great voice, or that person, performs well. And, I know people who've done podcasting and now they're acting, or they're doing books on tape, stuff like that. So it's pretty awesome. There's a lot of opportunity out there, but just have fun with it. Just remember that. And don't feel bad if it doesn't make it either. 90% of us don't go past their 10th episode. So,
there's a few
keep on saying that.
podcasts I followed for the last couple of years, and they just stopped all of a sudden. And
you will get there's pod burnout too, and that's a whole nother podcast panel on its own. So, so there we go. We only have a couple more minutes, so let's go around. Everyone, let's promote your podcast so people can find you. Matthew,
as I said at the top, I do Polyhedron. It's you can look up Polyhedron Podcast. It should be there. It's an RPG discussion podcast. You can find it at Polyhedron Cast on Twitter, and also that's probably the best way. Polyhedronpodcast@gmail.com if you want to email me as well. But other than that, that's the bulk of my podcasting situation, as it were.
Cool. Mike Faulkner.
I'll give one more plug for the ESO network, where Mike Faber hangs out, especially the DragonCon report, which is where the DragonCon newbie stuff goes up. And if you want to follow my blog, it's at creativecriticality.net.
Tyra.
I am Tyra Burton, and I'm at tyraburton.com because I got lucky. And so you can find out there, and it reminds me what my podcast names are. So Geek Meet Social will be relaunching next week. The pandemic took me out, but I'm coming back.
Awesome. Sean.
Sean Weiland on the social medias. You can find me at mail_NPC. Because I didn't take Twitter seriously when it came out. I'm like, this isn't going to go anywhere. So you can find...
Perfect.
Love it.
Oh,
So
awesome.
I co-host the Wasted Knowledge Podcast, wastedknowledgepodcast.com. And just look up Wasted Knowledge and all the things. I co-host the Beery Traveler, thebeerytraveler.beer, and just, again, Google that or go to the website and you'll find it. And, well, yeah, that's pretty much all the things. If you can't find one of those, then I can't help you.
Okay, my podcast is Earth Station One, Earth Station Who, part of the ESO network, where Mike Faulkner can be found also. And if you want to continue talking about podcasts, please find me up on Facebook. I mentor people, and Mike Faulkner and I are going to start teaching a class eventually. So it'd be very cool. And Channing, now we're pointing at you. Do you want a podcast?
You know, I still think I want to do it. I don't have a podcast to promote yet, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Channing Sherman. Feel free to follow me there and constantly send me messages. Hey, you recorded yet? Hey, you recorded yet? And
I'm
you
going to
can
go see
follow
if
my
Channing.
group.
I'm going to go see if ChanningSherman.com is available. So real quick.
I
I'll
do
be on
own
one
that
of your episodes. I'll come on.
Yeah,
on
we
one
all
of your
will.
episodes.
We
I will
all
take
will.
all of you up on that offer. And you can find my group. We're Black Geeks of DragonCon on Facebook.
That's
But
awesome.
again, just find me on Instagram and Twitter, and any encouragement or subtle pushes are always welcome.
I'm a teacher. I know how to push.
That's awesome. Thank you guys so much. It has been awesome. If you could reach out to any of us if you have more questions or if you want to learn more about podcasting, find
You
us.
all will be hearing from me eventually.
Exactly.
Yay.
Thank you guys.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Be good.
Happy
Stay
virtual
safe.
DragonCon.
Be safe.